in a nicely evocative passage. We are happier when we are healthy, well-fed, comfortable, safe, prosperous, knowledgeable, respected, non-celibate, and loved. How many people here got all of those right now? Oh, come on. Some people. Oddly enough, the person who said he was a 10 is not raised his hand. Okay. So this makes out you get all your needs satisfied. You know, your belly is full. People love you. You're getting sex regularly. You're smart. You're rich. You're happy. But as Pinker points out, it's not that simple. Here's the problem. You, Americans in this century, you are now healthier, better fed, and so on, than just about anyone in history. But you're not happier. That's the puzzle. In particular, these studies asking about happiness have been around for a long time. People in the 1950s did not make as much money, did not eat as well, did not live as long, suffered from more diseases, were more vulnerable in 100 different ways. Yet they are as happy as you are now. You are as happy as your parents were, and they were as happy as your grandparents. Moreover, in poor countries, people don't have the shelter, the knowledge, the protection, the safety. Yet, for the most part, there's not a huge effect on how rich a country is and on how happy the people are. Furthermore, there are great individual differences in happiness among people whose basic needs are met. For the most part, everybody in this room is fed and sheltered and safe. Some of you are prosperous, some of you are knowledgeable, a couple non-celibate. But even among that group, you vary in your happiness. And that's kind of a puzzle. And to explain the puzzle, we need to talk about a few surprising facts about happiness. And I'll present 3 of them. The first is, happiness doesn't change as much as you think. In particular, happiness is not as sensitive to what happens. Your happiness is not as sensitive to what happens in your environment as you might think it is. Part of the reason for this is that there appears to be a strong heritable basis for happiness. So just as we talked in the domains of personality and intelligence, there's some genetic determination, not entirely, but some, in how happy you are. And some people talk in terms of a genetically determined set point. So you have a sort of natural happiness level, maybe a range. To put it in extreme form, some people are genetically predisposed to be pretty sour, others to be pretty cheerful. Well, that can't be it. Identical twins are very similar in their happiness, but as with everything else we've discussed, they're not identical. What about life events? Wouldn't life events change your happiness? And here we're entering one of the great discoveries of happiness research. Think for a moment, what's the worst thing that could happen to you? And then ask, how much would it change your happiness? Now think for a moment, what's the best thing that could happen to you? And ask, how much would it change your happiness? And the research in happiness suggests that your gut feelings are probably wrong. And here's a couple of case studies. For many people, a very bad thing that could happen to you is to be paralyzed from the neck down in an accident. It turns out, obviously, common sense, that when this happens, it makes people very unhappy. It makes them depressed. They think their life is over. They feel terribly sad. But not for that long. After about a year, after being paralyzed from the neck down, people's happiness comes back up pretty much to where it was before. suggesting that there's a temporary effect but not a permanent one. Many people believe that winning many, many millions of dollars in the lottery will make you happier. And it does. When you open up that winning ticket, you say, I won $100 million. You say, woohoo. You are, honest to God, very happy. You'd say, hell, I'm at 10.5. I am very happy. A year later, you are not as happy. In fact, lottery winning may be a terrible case where it goes the reverse of what you expect. What happens when you win a lot of money is it often wrenches you away from your family, your work, and your friends, and leads you to depression and sadness. But even mundane events that would make you happy, that you think would make you happy, don't seem to last. In some research by Dan Gilbert and others, they've asked young assistant professors who are coming up for tenure, and tenure in a university system is a good thing to get because it gives you lifetime job security. How happy would you feel if you got tenure? How happy would you feel if you didn't get tenure? Prior to the last election, they asked people, how happy would you be if it was President Bush? How happy would you be if it was President Kerry? And it turns out people radically overestimated the effects of these things. Having your favorite candidate win is not such a big deal. Having your favorite candidate lose is not such a big deal either. Getting tenure or not getting tenure are really big when it happens. 6 months later and a year later, your happiness doesn't seem to be affected. The purchase of consumer goods, an Xbox 360, a nice flat screen TV, those sorts of things, make you very happy when you open up the package and set it up. But this happiness fades almost immediately. The moral of a lot of people are shaking their heads, it's true. I mean, not for me. But the moral of a lot of this work is we think these things will have big, permanent, and profound effects. But they need not, and they often don't. Why not? Why do we overestimate their happiness? And a technical term for this, by the way, is affective forecasting. Again, this is Dan Gilbert's work. And the idea is we are bad at affective forecasting. That is, we are bad at predicting how happy or sad we will be in the future based on what's happening to us. Why? Well, a couple of reasons. One thing is there's often a failure to appreciate the day-to-day irrelevance of certain events. So prior to the election, election's happening tomorrow, and I ask somebody who's a diehard Democrat, how would you feel if Bush won? And the person said, I'll be miserable. It'd be a miserable 4 years afterwards. But what often isn't appreciated here is that whether or not Bush wins will make you sad or happy after it happens, but for the most of your day-to-day life, you aren't thinking about who the president is. I'd be very happy if I won a huge prize. And I'd be, well, whoa, huge prize, the Nobel Prize, a Guggenheim, a MacArthur Genius Award. I get them all on the same day. What a day. I am really happy. But then, a month later, I'm there, and I still got my regular insomnia, and there's nothing on TV, and and the plumber's not coming, and my kids don't respect me, and I can't say, I can't, and the fact that, yeah, but I won the prize. It doesn't matter. A lot of the things in life that'll make you really, that you think will make you really happy, don't have this day-to-day effect. Also, there's the logic of the set point, and this comes to a terrible word. We adapt. Right now, I'm a guy without a Nobel Prize. I'm kind of used to it. If I got a Nobel Prize, I'd be a guy with a Nobel Prize. I'd be happy. But then, I kind of get used to that too. If I got a second one, whoa, 2! But then I just get used to that too. You get used to things. You get used to bad things. Now, I don't want to overstate this. There's some very interesting exceptions. So, for instance, we don't get used to noise. A lot of research suggests that if your environment is noisy, like they're doing construction around you, you can't get used to it. Your happiness drops and it doesn't come back up. Your system cannot habituate to continued noise.